very warm introduction. I can't tell you what a great pleasure it is to be here talking to Dilip Shanghvi ji of Sun Pharma. And it's a particular pleasure because Dilip bhai, it's so rare to see you talking. You're often spoken of as the reluctant billionaire. You're one of those icons of Indian industry. You've transformed the entire pharmaceutical space. And yet you don't talk very often or very frequently. So it makes this a particular pleasure for me to be talking to you.
Thank you.
Why, sir, don't you talk more often?
No, I think maybe when I was young, I grew up with the philosophy that let your work talk. So that's what I have done all through. Is that?
No, your work has most definitely talked, sir, and the marvels that you've achieved at Sun Pharma. I'm only going to spend some of the time talking about Sun Pharma itself because we would like to use the benefit of your insight and your knowledge of the world of health, pharmaceuticals, everything, to first start getting a slightly bigger picture of the overall landscape. So maybe we could start with that first, the overall landscape, and
Sure.
then we come to Sun. India, once upon a time in the pharmaceutical world was, they're going to make generics. It's low cost. Wait for something to go off patent, and then India will make it for you. That was the start. Has it changed a lot now?
Still not a lot. Generics continue to be an important part of the Indian pharma industry. But at the same point of time, I think many Indian companies are investing in innovative products. And these products are in different stages of clinical development. Many companies have products also now in phase 3. So we are all waiting for some of these products to get approved. And I hope that once these products get approved and they become successful, we will see a virtuous cycle of Indian companies investing in innovative research.
Till now, India has a very good brand image by and large for generics. Is that still the case? I mean, there have been one or two issues in the middle which came up, regulatory problems and other such things. Is that behind us? And in the generic space, is India's reputation globally as good as it once was?
No, I think, and this is something which maybe I would like to use this opportunity to educate, is that regulatory issues for manufacturing companies are not specific to India. US FDA as well as European agencies audit anywhere between a few hundred to close to 1,000 audits per year. And some of these audits find deficiencies which would then qualify the audit as a OAI, which basically means some kind of official action is required. And in case if the audit observations are serious enough, then they may issue a warning letter. Now, it's not this that it is happening only to Indian companies. I don't have statistics with me, but the overall percentage of the OAI, depending on in which year you will look at, for India has not been very different from maybe other countries. So, however, in India, the press has a focus on, let's say, if there is a recall of the batch of a company, then it gets headline. If an auditor comes to a factory, it becomes news. And once you get deficiency, 483 is nothing but the observations of the regulator. Now, many times all the observations can be explained, justified, and corrective actions can be put in place. And that satisfies, most of the time it actually satisfies the regulator. So I think what we need to do is maybe spend more time educating media a little bit more about how to look at this so that it doesn't get blown out of proportion.
Right. I'm luckily not in the media
Yeah,
anymore, so I'm very happy for you to blame.
No, and I am not
Everything
actually,
is the fault of
no, I am also not blaming media. I think
It's a question of education.
education and what they think is in the best interest of their readers.
So when it comes to generics, then why move from generics to specialty? That is, I guess, the fundamental question we'd like you to explain. Is it because it's moving up the value chain? Are the margins higher? Why do that? Because it's presumably an expensive business.
So, what is innovative product? Now, innovative product is a product which solves an existing problem much better than the other products do. So, when you develop a product for a disease, your focus is that your therapeutic profile needs to be superior to the products which are either in development or which are in market. Because when it is approved, you will sell it at a significant premium to the currently available product. And the healthcare system will pay for this only when the benefits that you provide justify that premium. So, and the process is designed to benefit the patients because large number of diseases remain undertreated or untreated. So it's necessary for industry to find appropriate treatment options for these patients. And the reason why the premium is charged is that research is very expensive. Bringing a new product to the market is extremely expensive and high risk. Multiple products fail before one product comes to market. So, but ultimately, because industry invests in research, markets this specialty product at a significant premium, patients benefit. And if you see all of us, quality of life has improved, overall life expectancy has improved. All of this is because better drugs, drugs which treat undertreated diseases are constantly coming to market.
For Indian companies to be able to compete in that space, though, those regulatory issues you were talking about in generics, in these new innovative products, it's presumably finding ways to make sure that patents come through, patent protection is there, you're able to charge a certain premium to justify the cost of development. So has that become simpler in India, the ability to go and get patents?
I mean, at least in our interaction with the ministry, we understand that they've hired a lot more examiner than what they used to have. The time for approval of patent has come down significantly, and the historical backlog in approval of patent is very different today than what it was 2 years back. So I think this will definitely help.
When you're looking at the overall environment right now, I mean, it's clear that there's an AI revolution that is there and technology is being brought to bear for a lot of those changes and innovations that you're talking about. I'd love to get your overall view on how much you think healthcare is going to change thanks to AI and the new methods that are now being used.
So, I mean, what I understand broadly is that, let's say, in silico simulation-based drug development has always been there. I mean, almost since last 15 years. You have softwares which can structurally see whether the product that you've developed will dock with the protein of your interest. And that helps you reduce the number of synthetic compounds that you need to generate from maybe thousands to few. And that increases the speed of product development. It still doesn't avoid the actual experiment and animal testing, but it reduces the number of compounds that you need to test in animals. So this is not new. What I am expecting is that when AI in the current form is able to do things which historical tools and solutions could not do, would be able to also structurally synthesize compounds which have not been synthesized till now, because typically historical tools have used a library of compounds to experiment and check. I think the new technology will permit new structures to be synthesized. So we will possibly start seeing drugs that are structurally so dissimilar to what we've seen in the past, but we have to see and allow this to happen. But Vikram, I think before I see benefit of artificial intelligence in drug discovery, I think in many other processes, say like chemistry or chemical industry, we will see changes. People will find a way to synthesize large compounds with safer chemistry, easier chemistry, greener chemistry, maybe less expensive chemicals, faster synthesis of products. So we will see a large number of changes. In the same way, treatment of patients, say like we've invested in a company which does, uses an actual iPhone for taking retinal pictures. It's a fundus camera equivalent. And it's able to, it has a database of previous screenings. So it's able to tell the technician whether the patient has wet AMD, say age-related macular degeneration, or what you call any other condition without having an expert present. And typically what we see is that it identifies patients much before the disease has become serious. So you send that patient to an expert and he is able to get treatment much earlier in the treatment cycle. And I see that happening also in cancer, is that you're able to detect cancer early, and because you detect cancer early, patient gets treated early and has much better prognosis and life expectancy.
I mean, you're right in saying that AI is only one of the many trends, almost exponential technologies that all seem to be converging at the same time. There's genomics, now you're having CAR T treatment, you're having CRISPR therapies coming up, synthetic biology is a possibility, the possibility of nanotechnology being used is there. Do you see all of these converging into a world where the sort of healthcare and treatments that we will have in 2030 or 2035 will be radically different to what it is right now?
Yeah, many diseases which were, as I explained, undertreated or not treated will have treatment options. And for the patients who are suffering from those diseases, this can be a huge positive. We will see better treatment options for chronic diseases. And all of that with a view to, I mean, there is a whole group of companies which is focused only on how do we extend human life. And their aim is to achieve a life expectancy of 150 years. So they're looking at various subsystems in human body which cause problem, which lead to early death or death at 70, 80. So by fixing those problems, how can people live much longer? So clearly, I don't know whether that will happen in next 10, 15 years, but our children will see a world which is very different from what we've seen.
I mean, I'm sure you've seen those predictions made by some people, the Peter Diamandis or the Ray Kurzweils of the world, who are saying by 2030, 2035, we may well defeat aging. We won't age anymore, right? The longevity becomes a very real thing. Is that a little far-fetched based on the science that we see right now? Or is it, you think, a legitimate goal to aspire to?
I don't think that we can stop aging. We will age slowly. And some of the negative impact of aging, which leads to certain system degeneration so that it starts becoming a major bottleneck for us to live, that will not happen. So and it's not going to be, say, like from tomorrow, life expectancy goes to 150. It will be a gradual process. But I see that improvement taking place.
From your own point of view, which do you think are the most exciting immediate opportunities or areas? And you're saying this is the place where we as Sun Pharma or as a country as a whole, if we really start investing and developing and doing R&D, very quick gains can be brought. These are the low-hanging fruits, in other words.
I think that's a difficult question to answer because I think there is a societal need and there is a business need.
Okay. Let's separate the two.
Yeah, separate. So societally, I think clearly many diseases like emerging markets, Africa, poorer parts of India, maybe many other countries, very different problems, sanitation, healthcare, basic problems, which are fixed in developed world. But that continues to be a problem. What got fixed Western world is a problem here because these disease bacteria have become resistant to the disease. So what they call multi-drug resistant species of bacteria are a major problem from a societal point of view. But it's not a financially attractive target.
So these would be in areas what like tuberculosis and other,
No, tuberculosis is still an attractive area, but diarrhea, dysentery, simple infections.
Okay.
But see what happens is that you develop a multi-drug resistant antibiotic. Problem will be that it will be reserved for all failure patients. So if there are 10,000 patients, you will finally use this drug on 20 patients. So the market is then not large enough to justify the economic development. But today what I see is that companies focusing on diseases like diabetes, obesity, different types of cancer, different types of mental diseases. Because in the US, there is a what you call preserved class of diseases in which healthcare system cannot refuse you approval. And they have to reimburse your product. So that becomes an attractive product for people to develop. So there are commercial interests which drive many of these decisions.
A lot of the economics in which those problems could potentially have been solved with the entire world coming together to try and optimize resources and doing things that may have changed in the last month or so, given what's happening in the United States. So I'm not sure of the priorities of what can fix things in underdeveloped countries is going to be a priority for the US administration. Is this complicating things? The threat of tariffs, for example, now, is it complicating things?
No, I think we're at a stage where we should not start forming views. Clearly, there is a lot of turbulence in this system, but we have to allow it to, because what we know is that President has talked about levying tariff. That doesn't mean that tariff is levied. He has to come up with a set of clearly defined list of products or list of class of chapters which will be tariffed at what rate, which countries will be exempted, which products will be exempted. So we have to allow this to become clear.
There is, of course, talk about India and the US working on some sort of a trade agreement. But is that something which you would now be concerned about? Like, how could tariffs and protectionist barriers in the US and who knows, maybe other countries will then start doing it? Does that become a real problem?
I mean, let's look at the whole issue from both India as well as the US point of view. We provide drugs to patients in the US, which help them significantly reduce their healthcare cost. We provide high quality, low cost generics. And every year, IPA, which is an association of pharma companies in India, we do a what you call analysis, and we assess that every year, because of the products that we supply to the US government saves anywhere between 150 to 250 billion dollars. So we provide ability to the government in the US to contain their healthcare cost. Now, maybe some of these products may become cheaper because Indian companies will pay for the tariff. But most of the products, we did an analysis, and our assessment is that most of the products that we supply, we will have to charge the tariff to the customer because we don't make enough money so that we can absorb the tariff. So then that has a negative impact in terms of what you call cost of goods increase in the US and the inflation increase in the US. So I think we have to wait for all of this to become clear.
In a more fragmented world where supply chains are also getting more and more disrupted, is that something that is a worry for people, for Sun Pharma or for others in the industry? Where is the raw material coming from? Where are the APIs coming from? Is that a concern, or is that increasingly under control?
No, I think especially post-COVID, governments across the world have been focused on finding a way to have a better visibility and control on their supply chain. So, and that remains an issue because even today, I think almost 30% of the products that we produce, and I think around 40% of products which are produced in India, are dependent on some critical intermediates that we import from some country. Most of them from China, but some of those intermediates may be from some other country also. So rightfully, Government of India also is concerned. And what I think we've been talking to the US government much before Trump came to power is that how India and US can work in partnership so that we can create a safe supply chain between partners.
And those conversations have been on for a while. Is it possible those conversations could also happen with Europe now? Because Europe, I'm sure, is also trying to figure out its own path.
I think so. So I think the President of Europe is, I think, planning to visit India. So hopefully those will be part of the dialogue.
Right. In case anybody has any questions, by the way, there are slips there. You can just note it down on a slip and somebody will get it up there. And I will ask some questions on behalf of the audience here. But if I could just switch now to Sun Pharmaceuticals itself. Do talk to us a little bit about the journey, right? When the key moments from when you started it off, small entity, to what has now become such a dominant company. What would be some of the highlights you'd really like to draw our attention to?
So, I started in '83 in Calcutta, and from a small base, and focus only on psychiatric products. Over time, I think we kept on expanding and also added new products, different therapy areas. But over time, we realized that it's better to focus on specialists rather than to focus on products which are prescribed by GPs. So we kind of became a company focused on specialists. And as our products started doing well, we started doing well. We started exporting initially to neighboring countries, but then subsequently also to other developed market. We went public in '94. At that time, we raised $17 million, and that's the only equity raise that we've done. We used part of that money to buy a company in the US, and that gave us an entry into the US market. So historically, I think our performance has been linked with organic growth as well as acquisitions. Some of the large acquisitions that we've done and which have helped us is we acquired Taro, which was a company in Israel, business in Israel, Canada, and the US. Then we acquired Renbaxy. And that helped us gain scale, size. So at some point of time, I think in 2014, we licensed a specialty product and started investing in developing a business around specialty product, which is what he says innovation-led product. So we have a range of product for dermatology and ophthalmology and oncology related to dermatology. And that business is now almost 20% of our company's turnover. So I think it's been a fun journey till now.
And research and development and innovation, would you think those have been part of your mantra in the years in the past and will continue to be going forward?
Yeah, I think I would attribute part of the success of the company to our investment in research early on. At the same point of time, I think we've consistently spent anywhere between 6 to 9% of our turnover every year. So like this year, we will spend closer to 3,500 crore rupees in research. But I think this helps us invest for short term, but also medium and long term.
I mean, we are at the AIMA, at AIMA, so had to ask you about your management style. It's something which you think you believe you've been able to do successfully when it comes to your own style of management.
So, philosophically, I have always believed that in our business, if we want to succeed, we need committed and motivated employees. And from the beginning, I think our focus was to find a way so that people will try and contribute their best so that they will do well as the company will do well. And this originated out of my experience is that when we started, we were a small company. We have medical representatives. They work alone in the field. So there is no way by which I can supervise the rep. So unless and until he wants to work and he wants to succeed, I cannot force him to succeed. So I think the approach was always that we want to have motivated, committed, hardworking, ambitious people working for us. And to make that happen, what we did was we tried and created a apolitical work environment where people are evaluated for their contribution, not for anything else. And created a meritocratic organization. At the same point of time, I also realized that if we want people to take risk and be entrepreneurial, but then if you start evaluating people for their failure, it will not work because people will then not take risk. So we never evaluate a person for his failure. We evaluate a person for his contribution and his ability to learn from his failure. So I think overall, I would say that we are a apolitical, meritocratic organization which is composed of committed people who find a way to work well with each other and continue to grow together.
Right. Your son is now also, playing a very active role. How is his
So,
style
so,
different to
so,
yours?
so,
And what's it like working with him?
so a little bit of difference, but my son has been working with us now for 14 years, and he started from what you call benches, in the sense that he started as a product manager in our international business. Uh, my son is, I think, far more, uh, let me explain, is that because we've grown the company together, a lot of times, if somebody is not able to pull the weight, I help and share his weight so that he can continue to succeed. His view is that we are paying people for doing what they are supposed to do. Then let them deliver. If he needs help, ask, he has to ask. I help unasked.
Okay.
So that, I think, is the difference. Is that if he will help somebody, if somebody specifically asks for help, I will help unasked.
Right, there are always differences in style. Right, let me start taking some questions. This from Dipen, an interesting question. By when can we expect obesity drugs like Zepbound to become affordable in India? I don't know whether you're looking at this space as a
No, we
follow-up.
are. Zepbound has a long patent. I think what will become available in India earlier is Wegovy. Wegovy semaglutide patents expire early, and that will become available. So both Ozempic as well as Wegovy will become available much earlier. Sun Pharma incidentally has a GLP-1 which is in phase 2. In early patient studies, we are seeing our product both in terms of efficacy as well as in terms of side effect superior to currently marketed product. So we're quite excited about bringing that product to market.
These drugs by and large safe because we are hearing a lot of controversy about them. A lot of people swear by them, others say no, they are dangerous.
No, it's
Or
not.
not dangerous,
It's
but
not
not good for
dangerous.
you.
It's not dangerous. Uh, I think it's not an OTC product. We need to be clear. It needs to be taken under supervision of a doctor who understands that disease or that product. So that in case if you're seeing some kind of side effect or some type of potential negative, I think he can take you off the product which you may not understand on your own.
All right. Mr. Khurana has a question. Is the pharma industry in India substantially dependent on imported inputs from China? Is it a very high percentage, and what can we do to reduce that?
So, like what I said, is that around 40% of products that industry makes are dependent on some kind of intermediate coming from China. Now, it doesn't mean we cannot make it. But if we want to make it, maybe it will cost us a little bit more than what it costs us when we import. There are some fermented antibiotics that we have very limited capacity to make. So if push comes to shove, we can make almost everything excepting some of these fermented antibiotics because we will be able to synthesize. It will become a little bit more expensive, but we can still make it.
Right. There are 2-3 related questions from Manjul Kumar, from Mr. Devakar, and from Anand Singh, essentially asking about generic drugs. So one question is that why is the government not being able to control prices of drugs by MNCs when generic drugs are cheap? And related question is that can generic drugs become even more affordable for the consumer?
So I think it's a very non-specific question, so difficult to answer in a what you call consistent way. But I think India philosophically is one of the lowest priced market in the world. So, but there may be a few products which are expensive. And large number of patent protected products in India are very expensive. They may be much cheaper than their price in US or in Europe, but because India is a different, what you call, purchasing power capacity, they may appear to be very expensive. But I'll give you an example. Let's say we used to market a product called Istavel, which is, it's an anti-diabetic product, and in US, Merck markets it at $8.50 a tablet. In India, we were selling it at 40 rupees a tablet. So very cheap compared to its US price. But for an average Indian patient, it is a very expensive drug. So I think this is where the challenge is.
Right. One last question from Mr. Gupta saying any plans for expanding to the northeast or setting up a plant there? I'll use that to broaden it up, I think, to a larger question of what are your next expansion plans at Sun Pharma? What are you eyeing?
So we actually have a fairly large manufacturing facility in Guwahati. And that facility, I think, is undergoing an expansion right now. So as our business expands, we continue to expand. So we would be putting up 1 or 2 greenfield sites as we expect both our India as well as international business to be able to continue to grow so that these facilities will remain busy.
All right, Dilip, before I think we are nearly at the end of this, I'm just going to end by asking, what do the next 4 or 5 years hold for you personally and for Sun Pharmaceuticals and the overall pharma industry?
So I think I expect Sun Pharma to continue to do well in all its businesses, which basically means that we will be a much bigger company than what we are right now. And much more international, because even though we are the fastest growing company in India, but our international business will continue to become a bigger part of the company because of sheer physical reality, in the sense that India is a relatively small market. Indian companies also will become much more international and continue to be an important provider for cost-effective generic products globally. And finally, I think we will have at least 1 or 2 products which are innovative Indian products come to the market, and which hopefully will start a virtuous cycle of Indian companies investing serious money in drug discovery and innovative products.
So that's really the holy grail which many Indian industries are eyeing, right? That stop competing on a cost basis, find areas, find products, find drugs and medications where the brand is there, where it's a product, because that then is the next step jump. You do see that happening in the next few years?
Yes, I see that happening in the next few years.
Any predictions as to which specific areas, or is that still up in the air?
No, I think it's a very highly uncertain situation, so difficult to predict. But I see that looking at, say, there are around 20 products in different stages of clinical development. I expect at least 1 or 2 to come to market.
Dilip, thank you so much for talking to us. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.